Hello, my name is David Fields, and this is another survival reality vlog from Field Skills. Today's vlog, I want us to ask ourselves a simple question. Why should we prepare for a long-term survival situation? Could one of these survival events long-term really happen? Is it a reality in our lives? A couple vlogs ago, I did a book review talking about the book 1 Second After, which was written by William Forstchen. And if you haven't seen it and haven't read the book, I highly recommend you do. It's a wonderful story. It's a fictional story. But what sparked my interest in reading that book was the foreword written in that book was written by Newt Gingrich. And I want to read that again for you in this vlog of what he said about the book and the reality of a potential long-term survival situation happening in this country. And Gingrich wrote this. He said, "Though this book is a work of fiction, it is also a work of fact, perhaps a future history, that should be thought-provoking and, yes, even terrifying for all of us. I know this from personal study across decades of the very real threat to American security that is posed by this particular weapon that Bill Forstchen writes about in 1 Second After." And so when we think about that, and when I read this book, it was I got so involved in it, I really started thinking more and more about, this EMP type event could really happen. So I started doing some more research and got on the internet and started looking at some of the forums and blogs out there on survival. And I came across a reference to another book, and I have read it, and I'm going to do a separate review on it later, but I wanted to read the preface to that book to you because it really scared me in a lot of ways when I thought about it. So when we read that, the book is entitled Survival Theory, a Preparedness Guide. And it's written by Jonathan Hollerman, who was a SEER instructor for the Air Force. And of course, SEER stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. But he said in his preface, "Most people have no idea that the federal government, FEMA, instructs all Americans to prepare for hard times. Ready.gov recommends that every household in America have at least 3 days worth of food, water, medical, and other supplies stored away in case of an emergency." Essentially, they are saying, we, the U.S. government, are totally unable to come and rescue your family in a timely fashion should there be a localized natural disaster. So he opened up with that point, and he went on to say this. He said, "You should prepare for hard times, not," and he wrote this in capital all caps, N-O-T, "not because it may take the government 3 days to mobilize, but because there are multiple verified scenarios that would cripple the U.S. government, leaving you on your own for months, if not years." And so when we start reading these things, and he went on to talk about the commission that had been established by the legislature in Washington to study this very effect of an EMP attack. And I went out and went to www.empcommission.org. Back in the early 2000s, the United States government put together a commission, a group, to study this very effect, and it was a commission to assess the threat to the United States from an electromagnetic pulse, EMP Attack. And like I said, you can download this report off of the EMPcommission.org site. And the commission, this group, which was created with high-level military personnel, experts in cyber community, the electrical companies, experts in power grid structure and all, this whole group of very intelligent, smart people together and said, we want you to assess this situation, look at that. And in 2004, well, first of all, let me just tell you, here's what the group's charter was, what they were tasked with studying in that. They were to review these things, the review of EMP threat they were to look at, and they were to determine the nature and magnitude of potential high-altitude EMP threats to the United States from all potentially hostile states or non-state actors that have or could acquire nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, enabling them to perform a high-altitude EMP attack against the United States within the next 15 years. They also reviewed the vulnerability of the United States military and civilian systems to an EMP attack, and they were to look at the capability of the United States to repair and recover after such an attack. And then they were to make recommendations to the federal government on what to do to prepare for their findings. So this commission came together and met, and in 2004 they came out with their executive report, which was kind of the preliminary report of this commission and the study they had made. And then they came back in 2008 with the complete and final report that they presented to Congress there. And then in 2014, they met, what was that date? November the 20th, 2014, they met with Congress. And then again on May the 13th of 2015, Dr. George H. Baker, who was one of the principals of this commission, met again before the U.S. House Committee on National Security. But one of the things I wanted to read to you here out of this report is the abstract. This is the summary page to the whole report. It's very interesting, the whole report reading. I think this is something like 50 pages, the executive report that came out in 2004. Then there was the full report, which came out in 2008, included this page, and total like 180 pages. And like I said, you can download that at www.empcommission.gov or .org, excuse me, .org through that. But here was their summary of their findings, this commission. Several potential adversaries have or can acquire the capability to attack the United States with a high-altitude nuclear weapon-generated electromagnetic pulse, or an EMP for short. A determined adversary can achieve an EMP attack capability without having a high level of sophistication. Let me read that again. A determined adversary can achieve an EMP attack capability without having a high level of sophistication. Can you think of any determined adversaries we have out there that don't have a very high level of sophistication? This group says they can achieve an EMP attack for that. The summary goes on to say, EMP is one of a small number of threats that can hold our society at risk of catastrophic consequences. EMP will cover the wide geographic region within line of sight to the nuclear weapon. It has the capability to produce significant damage to critical infrastructures and thus to the very fabric of U.S. society. as well as to the ability of the United States and Western nations to project influence and military power. The common element that can produce such an impact from EMP is primarily electronics, so pervasive in all aspects of our society and military, coupled through critical infrastructures. Our vulnerability is increasing daily as our use of and dependence on electronics continues to grow. The impact of EMP is asymmetric in relation to potential protagonists who are not as dependent on modern electronics. The current vulnerability of our critical infrastructures can both invite and reward attack if not corrected. Final quote from the foreword Newt Gingrich wrote, and he ended that foreword with this short statement. He said, "The threat is real, and we as Americans must face that threat, prepare, and know what to do to prevent it. For if we do not," 1 second after the book he was writing about, "the America we know, cherish, and love will be gone forever." My name is David Fields. You're watching another survival reality vlog from Field Skills. Thank you.